I was fired for helping a veteran's dog. Minutes later, Marines stormed the cafe. Welcome back with a new, real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. To the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone. I still remember that morning like it was yesterday. It was quiet, too quiet for a weekday morning. The kind of quiet where the air feels heavier and you don't notice it until something breaks it. I was working at this little cafe I'd been at for almost 2 years. Nothing fancy, just a place where regulars came in for coffee, where I knew most people's names and where the smell of fresh bread wrapped around you the moment you walked in. That was my life, simple, predictable. And I liked it that way. But that morning, I had this strange feeling. A kind of unease I couldn't shake. I chalked it up to the coffee shortage we'd had for a few days, or maybe just my own tiredness. I tied my apron tighter around my waist, wiped my hands, and walked out to unlock the door for the first customers. The street was still waking up. A couple of joggers passed by, their breath fogging in the cool air. I noticed a man standing just across the street. I didn't pay much attention. At first, people were always passing by. But then I saw him. He wasn't like anyone else. His uniform jacket was faded, frayed at the sleeves. His boots were scuffed. In one hand, he held a leash, and at the other end was a small dog shivering, ears low. The leash wasn't taut. The dog wasn't pulling away. It was almost exhausted. There was something in his posture that made me pause. He looked tired in a way deeper than just physically. Something inside me nudged. I don't know why, but I stepped outside. "Do you need help?" I asked softly. His eyes flicked up to mine, worn, tired eyes. For a moment, he didn't answer. I could feel the world shift somehow, like the air had thickened around us. Then he nodded slowly, almost reluctantly. That was enough for me. I took his hand and guided him and the dog inside. The bell above the door chimed softly, but it felt louder than usual. I could hear murmurs behind me, people whispering, wondering. But I ignored it. I only cared about the man and the dog. I offered him a seat and some water. He sat quietly, his head bowed. The dog curled up next to him, trembling slightly. The cafe, normally so warm and friendly, suddenly felt tense. My manager came over, his face tight. "Alec, what are you doing?" he said sharply. I froze for a second before replying. He needed help. He didn't look convinced. His eyes scanned the cafe. A few customers were glancing at us, whispering to each other. I could feel their eyes on me. And then, without another word, he left. I thought that was it. I thought I'd just helped someone and life would go on. But I was wrong. Minutes later, I was called into the back. The cafe was quieter now. The hum of coffee machines faded under the sound of my heartbeat. My manager looked at me with something I didn't recognize, something heavier than disappointment. "You're done here," he said. His words hit me like a cold slap. "For helping him?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Company policy," he replied. I stared at him, stunned. I wanted to argue, but no words came. My stomach twisted in disbelief. I'd never thought kindness could be punished. As I stepped outside, still reeling from what happened, a sound hit me, heavy boots on the sidewalk. My breath caught. I turned. Across the street, a group of men in uniform were marching toward the cafe. There were at least a dozen of them, their steps sharp, determined. Something in the air shifted again. This time it was fear. I froze. My eyes locked on the man I had just helped. He was standing quietly now, leash in hand, staring ahead. The dog was at his side, trembling. The soldiers approached faster now, voices sharp but not loud. They reached him, and everything happened in seconds, a rush of movement. The clatter of chairs, gasps from customers. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. My heart pounded so hard I thought it might burst. The man was surrounded, and then one of them turned toward me. Our eyes met. His face was serious, almost unreadable. "Step back," he said. I did. But deep inside me, I knew this wasn't over. Because in that moment, something changed. My life had changed, and I had no idea how much it was about to change. I watched from the sidewalk, frozen in place as the soldiers moved around the cafe. They didn't rush, they moved with purpose, calm but forceful, like they'd rehearsed this moment before. I could see the man flinch slightly each time one of them stepped closer. His hands tightened on the leash. The dog whimpered softly. Inside the cafe, the air felt heavier. Customers sat frozen, coffee cups half raised, staring as though they were watching something they couldn't believe. I could hear whispers, quiet conversations that seemed to grow louder in my head. What was happening? Why were they taking him? And why had it happened so fast? My manager stepped out onto the sidewalk, looking pale. His eyes flickered between me and the soldiers. He said nothing, to shut the cafe door behind him. My stomach twisted. That look on his face, it wasn't regret, it was fear. One of the soldiers motioned toward me. My knees went weak, but I didn't move. He stepped closer. You, he said quietly, almost to himself, stay back. The words felt strange, not an order to everyone, but to me, like a warning. They surrounded him quickly now. No explanation, no questions. My chest tightened. I wanted to run forward, to stop them. But something in me froze, and before I could decide, they pulled him away. The leash went slack. The dog barked once high, sharp, desperate. I swear for a moment I thought it looked at me. Then they were gone. The sidewalk was empty again, but the air still felt heavy. People were whispering now, looking at me and then at each other. I stepped forward slowly, almost without thinking, into the cafe again. The smell of coffee and bread didn't comfort me anymore. Everything felt changed. I grabbed my bag from behind the counter, my hands trembling. My manager was watching me, expression unreadable. I knew he was thinking about what had just happened. Maybe he thought about the company rules. Maybe he thought about me. But I couldn't stay there any longer. I stepped outside again, my eyes scanning the street where they had taken him. The sunlight felt colder now, the shadows sharper. Somewhere in the crowd, someone was filming on their phone. I felt exposed, as if everyone had seen me make a choice I couldn't take back. Walking away felt strange. My legs moved, but my mind was somewhere else. Back with him. Back in that moment when I stepped forward to help. The choice seemed so simple, then just kindness. But now, kindness felt dangerous. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My hands shook. I couldn't stop replaying what happened. The way his eyes looked at me before they took him away. The way the soldiers moved as one. Like this wasn't the first time they'd done it. And then the thought hit me, sharper than anything else. Maybe it wasn't just about him. Maybe it had been about me. Because for the first time, I realized I was part of something much bigger. Something I didn't understand yet. Something that wasn't finished. And I knew, deep down, that I had to find out what it was. That night, sleep didn't come. I lay there, staring into the dark, my mind replaying every detail, every moment of that day. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. Why? Why had helping a man and his dog turned into something so terrifying? The words my manager said echoed in my head. Company policy. But I couldn't make sense of it. It felt wrong. By morning, I knew I couldn't ignore it. I had to find him. I had to know what had happened. It wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was something heavier. A sense that the truth mattered. I went back to the cafe, even though I knew I wasn't supposed to. The place was quiet, closed for the day. The chairs were stacked, the smell of coffee gone stale. My manager wasn't there, and the silence felt strange-like. The air itself was holding its breath. I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the news and local forums. Nothing. No mention of what had happened. It was as if they'd erased it. That only made me more certain I had to find answers. I went back to the street where they'd taken him. I stood there for a long time, watching. The world felt different now, like there was an invisible line I had crossed. People walked by, ignoring me. No one stopped to say a word. But one woman, passing with her child, glanced over at me with a curious look. Then she hurried away. The next few days became a blur. I found myself retracing that morning over and over, every step, every word, every detail. I talked to a few regulars at the cafe, but no one seemed willing to discuss it openly. Some avoided my eyes. Others whispered that I should leave it alone, but I couldn't. I started asking around quietly. The man's name was Matthew. He was a veteran, they said, though no one gave me details. His story was scattered, half-formed rumors about some trouble he had gotten into, about service records and something no one wanted to talk about. Every piece I heard felt incomplete. One afternoon, I went back to the cafe, not to work, but to watch. From across the street, I waited, hoping for any sign. Then I noticed them again, uniformed men, walking in groups, talking quietly but with an intensity that made me shiver. They weren't just passing by, they were watching. That was when I realized this wasn't random. This wasn't about a man and his dog. This was about something much bigger. And somehow, I'd become part of it. Fear started to build in my chest. But so did something else, a stubborn determination. They had tried to silence him, to erase what happened that morning. Now they were trying to erase me, too. I couldn't let that happen. Over the next days, I started quietly documenting everything, taking notes, keeping track of what people said, even filming small clips when I could without being noticed. I knew it was dangerous, but I felt like I was already past the point of turning back. I couldn't explain why I was doing it. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was justice. Or maybe it was just the need to make sense of the fear that had lodged itself in my chest. Then one evening, as I sat in my tiny apartment going over my notes, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. The message was short: "Stop looking, it's bigger than you know." My hands went cold. My stomach tightened. I knew then this wasn't just about finding Matthew anymore. This was about survival, and I realized there was no turning back now. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I kept thinking about that morning, about the man, about the dog, about the look in the soldiers' eyes when they took him away. I didn't know what they wanted from me, but I knew one thing. This story was far from over. And somewhere deep inside me, I knew the next step I took could change everything. The days after that message felt unreal. Every sound in my apartment made me jump, the creak of the floorboard, the rustle of paper, even the hum of the refrigerator. I began sleeping with the lights on. My phone felt like a lifeline and a threat all at once. Every vibration made my heart race. I knew they were watching me now. Somehow, I couldn't stay quiet. I had to find him. Matthew. I went back to the street again, this time with purpose. I asked around quietly, under the guise of casual conversation. A barista down the block told me she'd seen him taken away, but warned me to stop looking. "It's not safe," she said. But her eyes told me she knew something. Her voice trembled. The next morning, I went back to the cafe. It was open now, but the atmosphere was tense. My manager avoided me entirely, cleaning tables as if trying to erase my presence. A few regular customers gave me wary looks, like they were deciding whether to trust me. I felt the weight of their silence, like everyone knew something I didn't. I decided to keep going. I started following small leads, asking friends of friends, watching local news, scanning online forums. Then, one afternoon, I got lucky. A stranger on a community board posted a blurry photo of Matthew, surrounded by soldiers. The caption said, "Veteran detained. No charges given. Where is justice?" That was all I needed. My heart pounded as I copied the image and saved it. I felt the fear again, but this time it mixed with a burning need for truth. Whoever was behind this wanted silence, and I knew breaking that silence could be dangerous. But I also knew it was the only way. That evening, I returned to the street where it happened. It was quieter now, the cafes closed, the streets dim. But something felt different. The air had a weight to it, as if the city was holding its breath. I stood there for a long time, scanning the street. Then I saw them 3 soldiers in the distance, talking quietly. They glanced toward me, their eyes sharp. My stomach turned. I knew they recognized me. I turned away, my mind racing. My phone buzzed again. Another unknown number. This time the message was different. Stop now, or there will be consequences. I froze. My breath caught in my throat. They were warning me. But I couldn't stop. I wouldn't. That night, I packed a bag. I knew I couldn't stay in my apartment anymore. I needed to find Matthew before they erased him completely. I had no plan, no guarantee of success. Only the certainty that this was bigger than me. That morning had shown me something important. When injustice hides in silence, someone has to speak. As I stepped into the dark street, I felt my heart pounding in my ears. Every step I took felt like crossing a line I could never return from. Somewhere out there, Matthew was waiting, or maybe he was already gone. But I knew I had to keep going, no matter what it cost, because this wasn't just about him anymore. It was about every story erased before it could be told. And I was determined not to let this one be forgotten. I stepped into the street that night and felt the weight of every choice I had made. My bag was heavy, not just with things, but with the fear and hope I carried. Somewhere ahead, I knew the answers waited. Somewhere ahead, there was Matthew, or what remained of him. The street was quiet except for the hum of distant traffic and the soft footsteps behind me. I turned, heart pounding. Shadows moved, 3 figures in uniform, moving fast. I froze. My chest tightened as their voices called out. I didn't hear the words clearly, just the tone sharp, urgent. My breath felt shallow, my legs heavy. I wanted to run, but my mind screamed that this was the moment. They surrounded me before I could think. One grabbed my arm, the other my phone. I tried to speak, but my voice caught. The third pulled something out of his pocket papers. I didn't know if they were orders or warnings. My heart raced so fast I could hear it. I felt the cold sweat on my skin. Then I saw him, Matthew, his eyes locked onto mine. He looked tired, but there was something fierce in his gaze. We didn't speak. There was no need. In that moment, his expression said everything. This wasn't about a dog, a cafe, or even him. It was about something much larger, about voices being silenced, about stories erased before they could be told. I was shoved aside as they took him away again. My bag slipped from my shoulder, hitting the ground with a dull thud. My knees felt weak. I stood there, watching them disappear into the night, feeling my chest collapse with something between grief and rage. When I finally walked away, the city felt different, the air heavier. Every face I passed seemed to carry a hidden story. I realized this wasn't the end, it was just another beginning. Back in my apartment, I looked at my phone. Messages I couldn't read, names I didn't know, faces I would never forget. I realized the world was full of moments like this, hidden battles fought in silence, moments swallowed by fear, power, and injustice. And I knew what I had to do. I began recording everything, every detail, every fear, every question. I didn't know if anyone would hear me, but I knew I couldn't stop, because Matthew's story and mine was part of something bigger, something the world needed to hear. If silence was the weapon, then speaking was the only way to fight back. And I ask you now, when will we stop letting silence win? Because every moment we look away, another voice is erased. And some stories deserve to be remembered forever.